Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on AutoML. Now, AutoML is a feature that we had already released in 7.6 version of the platform, but in 8.0 version of the platform, we have substantially improved the performance of AutoML experimentation. And today I would just like to give a very quick demo of how people who are not probably working as data science professionals, how can they use their data sets and create quick experiments related to regression or classification. So I have this data set with me. This is the data set. This has data for some fashion retail stock, and it has all of these different columns related to items and their current stock and the sale and the style and the fit and so many different uh, information related to state or the region and the store. So what I would be doing is I would be quickly taking you through two sample experiments that I'll create in AutoML. One experiment I'll create for a regression use case. For example, I would probably like to predict the total sales. So this is the total sales column, which I have highlighted here. So I'll just try to take this as the target column and use AutoML to predict the total sales for this data set. So the procedure to do that is I can just go to the menu. This is the home page. I'll click on DS Lab. I'll go to the project that I intend to use. So the name of the project is demo. And then I'll click on AutoML. Once I have clicked on AutoML, I can click on Create Experiment. The button is here. And the Create Experiment button takes me to the Dataset tab. As soon as I'm in the Dataset tab, the only thing that I need to verify is whether the dataset in question is present in my list of datasets listed down in the Dataset tab or not. If it is not present, then I can just click on Add Datasets. I can click on Sandbox if I'm using a CSV file or an Excel file. I can click on Upload, and I can then choose any file from my system, and I can upload that dataset. Once that dataset is uploaded, it would be available here, and I can just click on it, and I can click on Add, and that dataset will get added to my project. So I already have the fashion retail dataset added to my project, so I'm not going to add it once again. So you can see this dataset is added here. Now, in order to start an AutoML experimentation, I can just click on this icon here, which says Create Experiment. So I'll click on this icon, and I'll give an experiment name. So in this experiment, I want to predict total sales. I'll give that in the description so that my experiment will have a description, and later on when I want to refer to it as to why did I run the experiment, I'll have some idea. So I'll just scroll down and I'll choose this column total sales as my target column. So once I have filled in the details about the name of the experiment, the description, and the target column, I can click on next, where I would be choosing the experiment type, whether it's a classification or a regression. So since this is a regression problem, as I'm going to predict continuous values, I'll click on regression and I'll click on done. I can sit back and relax for the next 2 minutes or so till the experiment runs. And once the experiment has completed, I'll be getting an entry something like this. So I had run this experiment with the same data set and the same target column just a little while ago. So you can see this experiment had got completed. And as soon as the experiment gets completed, the status changes from running to completed. So you can see if I go to this experiment, which I had already run for sales prediction. So this was the output that I had got. This screen tells me what is the recommended model from my experimentation that gives me the best result, the metric value and the metric score. It also gives me run summary, which details the task type, whether it was classification or regression, and the status of the experiment, whether it's completed or failed, and the data set that was in use, also the target column that was used for prediction. Then I can go to the models tab. And in the models tab, I'll get three models. We list top three models that the AutoML returns as a list of best models. And for each of these models, we can view the explanation. So here we have different metric scores. Because this was a regression experiment, I have RMSE, MAE, R2 score, and we also have the fit time available. So I can get more details about any of the given models by clicking on View Explanation tab. So once I click on it, you can see I get a brief summary about the algorithm, the model that was created out of this experiment, and I get all of these performance metrics. So I have an option to either go to Dataset Explainer, wherein I'll get more information about the dataset that I had used for this experimentation. So number of columns and number of observations and number of missing cells, how many columns are numeric, how many columns are categorical. All these types of information are present, and it gives me information related to each column as well. How many missing values are there, how much is the distinct count, and all of these different information for that particular data set. So after this is done, I can go to Model Explainer. Model Explainer is something which will tell me more about the model uh, that has come out of the AutoML experimentation. So I have different tabs in the Model Explainability dashboard. This is the Model Explainability dashboard. We have tabs like feature importance, regression stats, individual prediction, what if analysis, and feature dependence. So many of the tabs will have similar names in case of classification. So this was a regression experiment. So some of the tabs would be unique to a regression type of an experiment. For example, regression stats. So if I take you through a classification experiment, which I will do in a couple of minutes from now, then this tab would be named as classification stats. So this tab actually gives me the feature importance of the features that were used for prediction that contributed towards the prediction. And we also have some regression stats, which gives me the metric score for the regression experiment, including R squared, MAE, MAPE, mean squared error, root mean squared error. And we also have some predicted versus actual plot. And we have all of different kinds of plots in these tabs. And then we have individual predictions. We have covered all of this in detail in another webinar. So people who are more interested in trying to find out how to work their way through this, they can refer to that webinar. And lastly, we have feature dependence. So now I'll go back to my AutoML experimentation page. And so my sales prediction experimentation, which I had submitted, that's also completed. I'll also quickly show you an experiment that I want to create with the same data set, but this experiment will be for the classification. So I'll come here. I'll again click on create experiment. And this time I can give it some other name. And I'll give a description. And in this case, I'm trying to predict the status, a column, and this is the target column. Once I'm done with this, I'll click on next. Once I'm in this select experiment type page, I'll go for classification because I am going to predict discrete values. And then I'll click on done. So I can sit back and I don't have to worry much for the next couple of minutes, and this experiment will run. And once the experiment has run, it will give me an entry like this. So you can see this entry. I had already run this experiment a little while ago, and it took a little over 1 minute to get completed. So again, we can go inside and view the report of the experiment, and we have similar details, but this time for a classification experiment, and the metric values are accordingly for the classification experiment. So this time we have accuracy instead of RMSE. Then we can go to models, and these are the best models, top three models that we had got, and the metrics that were used to ascertain the rank of the models. They were accuracy, balanced accuracy, log loss, MCC. So again, in a similar manner, I can go inside and view explanation, and I'll get a brief summary of the algorithm used in this model, and I'll get a performance metric summary here, which gives me detail related to the classification experiment. That's why I'm seeing precision recall F1 score. And likewise, I can immediately go to dataset explainer if I want, or I can go to model explainer. So once I go to Model Explainer, I am taken to the Model Explainability dashboard. And once again, as you know, we have these different tabs in Model Explainability, which I had already covered very briefly in the regression experiment that we had run. And as you can see here, the tab name changes for the classification experiment. Now it says classification stats. So these are the different charts that we have for model explainability. For this particular experimentation, we have what if analysis, individual predictions, feature dependence. So that's about it. And you can see how simple it is to run your experimentation and get the models. And once the models are uh, already available to you, we can go to the model tab, and we can click on unregistered. So we'll get a list of unregistered models. So I had run two experiments. One was F6 and F7. So I can click on expand for models. So I'll get a list of top three models that I had run for my regression experiment. And I have an option of checking the model explainability dashboard, or I have an option of exporting this model to Git, or I have an option to register this model. So if I want to productionize my model, I can just click on register uh, button, and it will immediately be available in the pipeline. So that's how simple it is to create models and productionize models. The same thing I can do for my classification experiment as well. So you can see this is the classification experiment that I had run. And if I want to register the model, that means if I want to push the model or deploy the model to production, I can do it with a click of a button. I can click on register and the model will be available in the pipeline. And inside the pipeline, I might have a pipeline something like this. And this will be helping me to do inferencing on data that I would be reading in production. So the model would be the model that comes out of AutoML. And this is an example of a model that has come out of an AutoML experimentation titled adult underscore one. And I have just created a sample pipeline. I had registered this model. So this model is now productionized. It is in production. And I have ingested data through this component. And then I'm passing that data to this AutoML model runner. And then I'm getting my predictions here. So this is like how quickly, just by clicking certain links and certain buttons, we can create models. We can actually check more about the models in explainability, and then we can publish the models to pipelines for productionizing it, and we can get our predictions in pipeline, all at the click of a button, and it hardly took, I guess, uh, more than 5 minutes or so. So this is how simple life becomes when we are using AutoML. And this is especially helpful for folks who are working as citizen data scientists and who might not bother to go and create a notebook for their experimentation and spend time and debug and try to figure out by trying more than 3 or 4 different models and then zeroing on the model that actually gives them the best metric value for their experimentation, which could be regression or classification, and then coming up with that model and publishing it to pipeline. So that would be a manual work and something that a data scientist can do quite easily. But a person who is not a data scientist, who is a citizen data scientist, but he intends to run a data science experiment without the complexities involved in coding, he is most welcome to use the AutoML feature that we have. So with that, I would like to conclude my uh, demo. If there are any questions, you can please go ahead.